April 1775. Across the Atlantic, a British packet ship slices through stormy seas, carrying an urgent message to the American colonies, a last-ditch attempt to halt the rising tide of rebellion. A gesture meant to pacify the restless colonies without ceding Parliament's authority. It is a compromise in name only, offering autonomy and taxation, but reaffirming British supremacy. Prime Minister Lord North has passed a conciliatory resolution, but the Atlantic crossing takes 6 long weeks. By the time the scroll reaches colonial hands, it's already too late. The first shots have been fired at Lexington and Concord. Blood has been spilled on American soil. The war has begun. The response to Lord North's resolution is swift and scathing. The Continental Congress, with words penned by Franklin, Jefferson, Adams, and Lee, lays out a fierce rebuttal, a litany of unhealed wounds, from the coercive acts to the imposition of military rule and taxation without representation. Though brave and battle-hardened, they are poorly equipped and leaderless. Their commander, Artemas Ward, is a 47-year-old militia officer in declining health. The colonies are no longer pleading, they are preparing. In Boston, the city is under siege. General Thomas Gage, commander of British forces in America, is hemmed in by 15,000 New England militia. Yet under his command, the militia make a bold move. They fortify the heights overlooking the Charlestown Peninsula. From these elevations, American cannon could command the harbor and strangle British supply lines. General Gage decides he must act, and fast. The peninsula must be cleared. He turns to one of his most trusted officers, Major General William Howe. Howe prepares to lead a frontal assault to take Breed's Hill, a fortified knoll mistakenly thought to be Bunker Hill. The battle to come will be brutal and historic. June 17, 1775. The morning sun rises over Boston Harbor. General Howe prepares to lead 2,500 British regulars across the Charles River toward the heights of Charlestown. Their target is Breed's Hill, where overnight, rebel militia have built a stout redoubt of timber and earth. Behind it stands Colonel William Prescott and some 1,200 militiamen from Massachusetts and Connecticut. These are not professional soldiers, but they are defending their homes, and they have the high ground. British ships open fire to cover the landing. A floating battery and cannon from Copps's Hill thunder at the heights, but the rebel defenses remain intact. The redcoats form up in lines, their bayonets gleaming. They begin the uphill advance, marching in perfect order beneath the brutal summer heat. Inside the redoubt, the militia wait in tense silence. Ammunition is scarce. Every shot must count. Colonel Prescott issues the now legendary order: don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes. As the British draw within range, the American lines erupt in smoke and flame. A devastating volley shreds the advancing ranks. British soldiers fall by the dozens. Officers are struck down. The lines waver, then retreat. Howe rallies his men. They regroup and once again begin their grim ascent. But again, the defenders hold firm. Behind fences and earthen walls, they deliver another punishing volley. British casualties mount. Entire companies are torn apart. Some regiments suffer more than 50% losses. It is a disaster. A third assault is ordered, this time with bayonets drawn. Yet Howe is determined. He knows now the Americans are nearly out of powder. The redcoats storm the redoubt, and the American lines break. In savage hand-to-hand combat, the British fight their way to the summit. The redoubt falls, but at a terrible cost. British casualties exceed 1,000, over 200 killed, and more than 800 wounded, choosing instead to fight in the redoubt as a private soldier. Among the dead, many officers, the backbone of Howe's army. American losses are lighter, around 450, but they include Joseph Warren, a respected leader and president of the Massachusetts Provincial Congress. Warren had refused an officer's post. He is shot in the head during the final assault, To the Patriots, he becomes a martyr. The British have taken the hill, but victory has never felt so hollow. Out of the 2,500 men who marched up Breed's Hill that day, more than 1,000 lie dead or wounded. Dozens of officers, many irreplaceable, are lost. He will never again attempt a direct assault on fortified American positions. General Howe himself is shaken by the carnage. His confidence and that of the British High Command has been badly rattled. One British lieutenant, in a letter home, struggles to describe the horrors he witnessed. The soldiers stabbed some and dashed out the brains of others. It was a sight too dreadful to dwell on. The hill was streaming with blood. For the Americans, the battle is technically a defeat. The hill is lost. But in spirit, it is a defining triumph. 054, they had stood toe-to-toe with the world's most powerful army and inflicted massive losses. To General Nathaniel Greene, the outcome is clear. I wish we could sell them another hill at the same price. The British, meanwhile, are in no condition to exploit their success, and the militia's resolve hardens. Their dead and wounded fill the field hospitals of Boston. Morale sinks, supplies run dangerously low. The rebel lines tighten around the city. Though they lacked powder and proper training, they had bled the British. His name becomes a rallying cry. His sacrifice, a symbol of the price of liberty. Joseph Warren's death strikes a blow to the heart of the Patriot cause, but it also fuels the fire of resistance. 143, in the weeks that follow, newspapers across the colonies print detailed accounts of the battle. The stories of valor and British brutality spread like wildfire. Recruitment surges. Militia camps swell with new volunteers. And from across the colonies, reinforcements begin the long march toward Boston. The Battle of Bunker Hill proves one thing above all. This is no minor uprising. This is war. July 2nd, 1775. A tall, solemn figure arrives at the outskirts of Boston. It is General George Washington, newly appointed Commander-in-Chief of the Continental Army. Once a Virginia planter and provincial officer, Washington now bears the hopes of an entire rebellion on his shoulders. He brings experience from the French and Indian War, wealth through his marriage to Martha Custis, and above all, an air of leadership. You distinguish him as a general from among 10,000, one observer writes. He has so much martial dignity in his deportment, but what Washington finds in Boston is worse than expected. The army he now commands is barely an army at all. Latrines overflow. Ammunition is critically low. Discipline is lax. Soldiers come and go as they please. Tents sprawl haphazardly across the hills. Many lack uniforms, and some have no muskets. Gunpowder stocks are enough for just 9 rounds per man. There's no central supply chain. No functioning command structure. Washington is appalled. He acts immediately. Officers are marked out with cockades or sashes. Punishments for theft, desertion, and insubordination become swift and severe. Soldiers are drilled. Earthworks are repaired. Most critically, Washington orders his men inoculated for smallpox, a deadly threat sweeping through Massachusetts. It is a controversial move, but it may have saved the army from collapse. Washington now commands a patchwork of forces from 13 different colonies, who will become Washington's most trusted lieutenant. Men from Virginia, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, each more loyal to their home than to any central cause. To help manage this fractious army, Congress appoints a diverse set of generals. Nathaniel Greene, a self-taught Quaker from Rhode Island. Israel Putnam, the fiery old veteran of Bunker Hill. John Sullivan, aggressive, ambitious from New Hampshire. Horatio Gates, a former British officer, efficient but arrogant, and Charles Lee, brilliant, erratic, and dangerously insubordinate. Washington must forge these men and their armies into a single disciplined force. But for now, all he can do is hold the siege. As the summer of 1775 turns to fall, Boston remains under siege. British forces, hemmed in by land and threatened by sea, find themselves in a dire predicament. Smallpox spreads rapidly through the city. While most British troops have been exposed or inoculated, civilians, including women and children, suffer terribly. Food grows scarce. British supply lines stretch over 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. And now, those vital shipments face a new threat: American privateers. Swift colonial ships, backed by letters of marque from Congress, begin harassing British vessels. Captured cargoes of gunpowder, muskets, and flour are rushed back to the Continental Army. On November 29, 75, privateers score their biggest prize yet. The brig Nancy, carrying 2,000 muskets, bayonets, and powder, a lifeline to Washington's starving army. Inside Boston, General Thomas Gage's failure is impossible to ignore. London loses patience. Gage is recalled. Command passes to General William Howe, scarred by his costly victory at Bunker Hill. But Howe inherits a hopeless position. Trapped behind rebel lines, his men suffer from hunger, illness, and cold. British morale plummets. In the American camp, things are no better. Winter descends, firewood vanishes. Men burn fences and cut down every tree within a mile to keep warm. One soldier writes, "Many have eaten their provisions raw for lack of fire. We have suffered prodigiously for want of wood." Even worse, most enlistments expire at the end of December. But hard-won battlefield experience. Despite Washington's appeals, threats, and promises, nearly half his men pack up and leave. They take with them not just weapons. By January 1776, Washington's army has dwindled to fewer than 9,000 men, many of them untrained recruits. The situation appears desperate. Then, news arrives from London. King George III, addressing Parliament, has condemned the rebellion in brutal terms, calling it a desperate conspiracy and promising to crush it with overwhelming force. For many patriots, it is the final blow. The dream of reconciliation dies. Only independence remains. Winter grips the American siege lines around Boston. The camps are silent, bitterly cold, and nearly broken. But inside, something is changing. The dream of compromise with Britain, of peace under the crown, is slipping away. King George's denunciation of the colonies as traitors. The brutal British assault at Bunker Hill. The promises of freedom to enslaved people by royal governors like Lord Dunmore. All of it sharpens resolve in the American camp. Even moderate voices now call for bold action. In Norfolk, Virginia, flames light the sky on New Year's Day, 1776. The city burns to ash. Loyalists and patriots both blame the other. But the result is clear. Another bridge to peace has been burned with it. General Washington, facing collapse, clings to discipline and determination. He drills his ragged force, waits for reinforcements, hauled over snowy mountains by Colonel Henry Knox in a feat of logistics as daring as any battle, and prays for an opportunity. Then in March, an answer comes. The guns of Fort Ticonderoga minus 59 heavy cannon finally arrive. By night, the Patriots drag the artillery into position on Dorchester Heights, overlooking Boston Harbor. When morning breaks, British officers stare in disbelief. Washington now commands the high ground and can fire directly upon the fleet. Howe knows it. Boston is no longer tenable. Within days, British forces begin their withdrawal. On March 17, 1776, they abandon the city. Boston is free. It is the Continental Army's first great victory, achieved not by a pitched battle, but through patience, planning, and unity. But far greater trials lie ahead. The British Empire is rallying its strength. Tens of thousands of redcoats and Hessian mercenaries are preparing to cross the Atlantic. The colonies must decide, once and for all, who they are. Loyal subjects of the crown? Or a free people with a destiny of their own? For many, the answer is now clear. From the bloodied slopes of Breed's Hill to the icy camps of Boston, a revolution has begun.